Thank you so much for coming tonight. We want to say we appreciate your support, spending a Thursday night with us. Tonight, you're going to see a lot of awesome talent, and it's only a small piece of how incredible our team is. We're excited to show you what did well this year, what made out-rounds at TFA State, what made finals at TFA State, what's going to UIL State and Nationals. So we hope you enjoy it because we've worked very hard. We want to say thank you to all of our administrators who I was going to name, and now I can see no one. Sorry about that. Administrators, I know Mr. Waters was here, so thank you so much for always supporting us and helping keep us on the road. We want to say thank you to our school board. I know that Mr. Max Parker and Lanny Lehman are out there. We appreciate you guys. I know that we could not do what we do without our administrators and our school board members who take care of us always, and you take such good care of us. And we want to say thank you to our parents for picking us up at 2 o'clock in the morning when the bus pulls in, for dropping us off at 3 a.m. that same morning. We know that you've heard pieces all year long over and over and over. We know you've heard them argue with each other as they practiced for debate, and we appreciate that. We appreciate you listening and supporting. Tonight, you're going to get to see a couple things. I feel like I should explain a few. One of them is duo interpretation. In duo, you cannot look at each other or touch each other. So even though it seems strange, it's kind of magical. You're going to see Congress and all of those debate kids actually do multiple styles of debate, but we've merged it to highlight as many debaters that deserve to be highlighted as possible. I also want to give a shout out to Tim Haynes. He's my counterpart. He's making sure we sound good tonight. And to Jack Wilcox, he is filming this for us, so thank you, Jack, for being here. And before I don't have a moment to just like take a platform and say something I want to say, donations outside are all going to go to helping pay for us to do this tonight and helping make tickets free because we wanted everyone to be able to come and enjoy. And if you decide to donate, where the red shirts are, I just want to take 2 seconds. Zach Sutterfield, which I'm sure if you're living in San Angelo, you've heard. Zach Sutterfield was one of our legends. He was an officer, a captain, and is an incredible kiddo. He was in the San Marcos fire on July 20th. He had 70% of his body burned and had trauma that he's still working through. But he is a light of inspiration. He has the best attitude and the can-doest most spirit that I have ever seen in a kiddo. And of course, all his rehabilitation is going to take a lot. They're trying to figure out how to get him a hand he can use and work on plastic surgery, which he's pumped about. So if you donate to the red shirts, you are donating to Zach. And we're keeping that money to give to him. So just so you know, we appreciate the heart of San Angelo. I know that a lot of you have already donated to that Sutterfield family that we love so much. Okay, so I won't keep you any longer. Thank you again for being here, and enjoy the evening of solid entertainment.
When I was younger, we always had family time. And family time means you get to stop your life, sit down, and bond with your family. And for many years, I did this thinking, isn't it bad enough I have to be related to the people I live with? I joke. But my family's a lot. My sister is a teenage supermodel wannabe. And then there's me. And I'm pretty fabulous, but I really just want to be on my phone all the time. I mean, what else is there really? In a study done by Elon University, 60% of the respondents said they use their phone more than 4 hours every day. Myself included. I have a mini heart attack every time that daily average screen time pops up on my phone. And my goal today is to inform you how we are so wrapped up in this online world that we're no longer paying attention to the real one. The Woven Poetry, Family Time, and Priority by Elise Sharon, and Touchscreen by Marshall Davis Jones. A program. Because at what point do we decide it's time to disconnect? My priorities include my money, my stuff, my car, my phone, my social media, my enemies, so they can see me succeed. It was easier when I was a kid. You know, we had family traditions that got passed down from generation to generation, and I loved them, but Granny didn't have a cell phone. Granny believed in sitting down and looking at people when they talked to her. So what happened? What happened to family time? iPod, iMac, iPhone, iChat. I can do all of these things without making eye contact. My money, my stuff? Who asked me what my priorities are? Good question. Mom has announced that tonight is family night. How much do I want to kill myself? A whole lot. So after I text her all of the very important things that I have to do tonight, she doesn't even respond. Instead, she knocks on my door and sends me a text from there. I'm in the next room. Come and talk to me. Smiley face emoji with a side-eye emoji. You can give 1 hour to your family. Fine, Mom. 1 hour. And my phone rings again. You didn't used to be so mean. Sad face. So, I update my status, 420 spaces, to prove that I'm still breathing. I slam my list of priorities, realizing I could go on all day starting each sentence with my. Me, mine. I mean, my first thoughts were on my things. Things didn't pick me up from the hospital after I ran a red light and hit another car. That was Mom. Things didn't sit with me after I had the worst breakup of my life. That was my big sister. You know, things don't have that power. Power on until we are powerless. It takes the ones we love to make us stop. Just stop. And I look at myself and I realize I'm the worst. But with 3,000 friends online and only 5 I can count in real life, why wouldn't I want to be in a place where there are more people that like me? Wouldn't you? Attached to my tablet, my cell phone, apps, emails, and none of them represent a real friend, a real relationship, or family. So when my phone goes off in my hip and I touch, and I touch. We fight to be remembered for these things that don't matter. The social media doesn't matter. Mom matters. Dad matters. And, you know, my sister might never be a model. But when we sit down and we talk about how lame life is as a teenager, she's pretty cool. Would it be possible to answer that question again? My priorities? Easy. Family, friends, done. So I grab my phone and with fingers of fury I send a text. Hey Mom, I'm a jerk and you still love me. Want to start family time early with a movie? I'll start the popcorn. No phones allowed. And I wait for a response, and there's a knock at my door. And Mom stands there before me, tears in her eyes as she reads my text from her phone. And she hugged me harder than she has in a long time. And we both started laughing, and I tossed my phone on my bed, and like two best friends, we giggled all the way downstairs to start some much needed family time.
a critical part of our childhoods. Whether you grow up with a mom like mine who buys Monopoly for millennials for you and your siblings to play over Thanksgiving break, or maybe you tune in every day to Wheel of Fortune. Bankrupt. Nice. Games shape our lives, but many games require something that we don't always recognize: memories. Certain things tend to stick into our heads forever, whether it be exactly where you were or what you were doing when the planes crashed into the Twin Towers on September 11th, 2001. Or maybe it's the games you used to play on the playground. Memories also shape our lives. So today, we'll gather around the table with Grandma and play some of the classics, as we first look at the science behind memories. Then we'll look at how we've advanced in our understanding of memories, and last, we'll examine some diseases responsible for the loss of memory, along with some steps that we should be taking every day to ensure that our memories last as long as possible. It's important that we understand how our memories shape us, because we shape the world. Our first game is one of Grandma's favorites, a true classic, concentration. We use this to examine the science behind memories. Neuroscientists have been trying to piece together the complicated puzzle that is to human memory since the early 1990s. Bad memories tend to stick into our heads more so than good memories. Smithsonian Magazine calls it the flashbulb effect, in which the very act of remembering an event tends to change our memory of that event. Memories are synaptic transmissions stored in neurons in the brain. The average human brain has over 100 billion neurons. Everything we do, driving a car, going to school, making a friend, requires knowledge of a past event or a memory. Messenger RNA, or mRNA, is responsible for coding for beta-actin proteins. Beta-actin proteins are responsible for shaping and structuring neurons. They're also responsible for drawing lines and making connections between past events and what's going on now. Retention of memories is extremely fragile. The misfiring of even one of these neurons can lead to either the total destruction or the storage of a memory. The hippocampus, which is a part of the brain, is responsible for a large portion of memory storage. However, proteins in the hippocampus can deteriorate. This has led scientists to answer the age-old question of long-term memory. Recent discoveries have led to the study of epigenetics as the long-term replacement. Epigenetics are the ability of a gene to turn on or off protein production. The ability of the human body to turn on and off protein production gives us the ability to store things into our long-term memories. Epigenetics are the reason that you can remember your middle school crush. Yikes. We only store the most important things into our long-term memories. Nothing reminds me more of my grandmother than the smell of talc powder and the sound of da 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 da. You guessed it, Jeopardy! Jeopardy game winner Ken Jennings describes his astonishing memory capacity when he tells Business Insider on March 1st, 2017, that it's not about how many hours you spend studying. It's about how engaged you are. For many of the contestants, the weeks leading up to the game show debut are spent choking down random facts about European leaders and origins of words. Information that seems pretty trivial to me. Here we have a Jeopardy board. Under each number is a question that corresponds to the category. We'll use this to examine how we've advanced in our understanding of memories. I'll be your host. Let's start off with ancient Greeks for 1600. First example of human curiosity goes back over 2,000 years to the publishing of the book On the Soul. Do you know who this groundbreaking dude is? Who is Aristotle. He theorized that the human mind was a blank slate with no prior knowledge at birth. Next, let's move to 18th century literature for 400. First to hypothesize that memory was encoded in signals in the nervous system. Who is David Hartley. Later, experiments that fed off of Hartley's hypothesis failed, but he still made groundbreaking discoveries when it comes to our current knowledge of memory. Next, we'll move to German biology for 2000. First proposed that experiments left a mark on the human brain, creating a memory. Who is Richard Simon. He's considered a founding father in physiology for his work towards memory research. Next, we'll move to Canadian figures for 800. In 1949, theorized that neurons fired off each other to create a memory, who is Donald Hebb. This name should sound extremely familiar because Hebb's rule is taught in many modern-day biology classes. And last, we'll move to Canadian figures for 200. Women in history for 200. In 1973, influential research regarding the misinformation effect and memory bias, who is Elizabeth Loftus. She theorized that the very act of remembering an event tends to change our memory of that event. Our memories are constantly changing to adapt to things that interest us, much like our knowledge is constantly having to change to adapt to things that develop in our world. We've come a long way when it comes to our current knowledge of memory, but we still have a very long way to go. Now, our last game is one that we all should be playing every single day, because it will make a difference in the end. Last, we'll complete a crossword as we look at some of the diseases responsible for the loss of memory. There are 2 major diseases responsible for the loss of memory. These are extremely common, so you'll recognize the names. The first of these is Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is shockingly common in our society, with over 3 million Americans being diagnosed every single year. Currently, over 5.7 million Americans are engaged in battle against this horrific disease. And even though we've made leaps and bounds when it comes to our research, this disease is still considered incurable. There are 7 stages to Alzheimer's, the first of these being prior to diagnosis. We then see no visible impairment. And finally, we enter minor cognitive decline, then mild, moderate severe, and finally severe decline, where Alzheimer's has taken full control, and the person you once knew and loved, and the memories that made them who they were, are wiped away. Alzheimer's is not the only disease that plagues our society and strips us of our memories. Another is dementia. Alzheimer's and dementia go hand in hand. In fact, according to the Alzheimer's Association, 60 to 80% of dementia cases are also considered Alzheimer's. In late 2016, my grandmother was diagnosed with dementia. Some days, she can tell you every event that led up to my birth. Every event. Some days, she can't tell you my name. We play games because it brings back a piece of her that we don't always get to see. Scientists have recently said that completing simple puzzles, like crosswords or word searches, or even engaging in simple mind games, like Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune, can actually help our memories last just a tad longer. They even go on to explain how maintaining a healthy diet and even simple physical exercise can help to ensure that our memories don't go at an early age. The human brain is magnificent, and we only get one, so it's important we take the steps now in order to ensure that our memories last. Each is individual and unique, and they're irreplaceable. So it's time that we stop focusing on the European leaders and the origins of words or other trivial things in our lives. It's time that we actually begin to remember the important things.
Bum ba-dum bum. Greetings and welcome to the Crazy Town Elementary School Presidential Debate. I'm Sophia from Miss Brady's class and will serve as moderator for today's election. Today's debate will be structured in a town hall format, with questions posed by you, the students. Now please join me in welcoming your 2 candidates, Caitlin Parker and Eddie Grantwood. To say the least, 2016 was an unforgettable year. From internet fads such as Pokemon Go and R.I.P. Harambe, to the 2016 presidential election. With Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton running neck and neck, the total outcome came down to what our millennials had to say. And that is totally terrifying, considering that over 11,000 Americans actually voted for the dead gorilla, Harambe. But with the 2020 election coming up, maybe it's time we start taking advice from our future generations. Because The Future is in Your Tiny Hands by Jonathan Rand.
Before we get started, I'd like to ask the candidates, if you could describe your candidacy in 3 words, what would those 3 words be? Well, if I could describe my candidacy in 3 words, it would be 4 too long. Our student body has been divided into factions of the have and have-nots, but under my administration, I will make sure everybody has an equal opportunity to achieving their dreams. Well, if I could describe my candidacy in 3 words, unlike my opponent, I will comply to Sophia's 3-word limit. My goals include Our first question comes from Don Francisco, who this one time shot a PG-13 movie when her parents weren't home. I love tater tots. What is your stance on tater tots? To reiterate, I love tater tots. And excellent question, Don. As you can see, over the last decade, we've seen a disturbing decline in overall quantity of tot. But under my administration, I will reinstate the legislation known as a lot of tots, which will make sure that all lunch trays adhere to my PPPPPPP plan. Perpetually plentiful piles of petite potato perfection. Ladies and gentlemen, these are difficult times, but make no mistake, I will win the war on taterism. Look, I'm not gonna beat around the potato bush. Tater tots poll at 99.4%. That's a higher approval rating than ice cream trucks. So basically, if you hate tots, you hate America. I love tater tots, and I love America. Under my Lunchbox Lovers program, we the people will decide what's for lunch. Be it tater tots, corn dog Lunchables, or, and this is the most important of all, fruit. By the foot. Awesome. Our next question comes from Brendan Slattery, whose career goals include Batman. Awesome. Girls are gross. Thank you, Brendan. Gender issues are a critical part of this election, which is why on day 1 of my administration, I will repeal the student council's short-sighted verdict in awesome girls versus silly boys. Once again, my opponent is on the wrong side of history. Awesome girls versus silly boys is our generation's most influential ruling, which is why I will throw my full support behind it and call for punitive damages pursuant to the yanking of pigtails. That is outrageous! Pigtail yanking rats have been in place since the days of our forefathers. Sophia, before we move on, I'd like to point out that my opponent is a girl and is therefore, by the transitive property of gender, totally gross. Ow! And I'd like to point out that my opponent is a boy, and in a few years he'll do a total 180 and try to impress me with some cheap cologne. But I reject him for somebody with a driver's license. Awesome. Our next question comes from... We will be turning to our Twitter feed for our next question. @ChunkyMonkey12 says, "Yo, trolls, totes LOLs, ROFL, DM me with pics." #YOLO. Our next question comes from Larry Hartley, whose favorite candy is all candy. We live in a world where we face difficult challenges, which is why I must ask, how many jumbo marshmallows can you fit in your mouth? I don't know, 5? 6. Our last question comes from Edie Shingle, who really loves horseshoes. Ah! I am always picked last for pickball. Under your administration, will I ever get picked last? Again? Under my administration, I will make sure everybody has an equal opportunity to getting picked first. Well, where I come from, we call that way of thinking hogwash, or malarkey, or stupid, dumb pants. You know, maybe things would be different if we were in Russia playing communism ball. But we are in America playing kickball. In America, do we pick LeBron James last in the NBA draft? No! Because that would be stupid, dumb pants. We will always pick LeBron James first in the NBA draft, just like we will always pick Jenny Friedman first in kickball. Why? Because Jenny Friedman is good at kicking the ball. With that concludes the end of today's debate. On behalf of the entire student body, I'd like to thank the candidates for what it seems to be a highly informative conversation. Now, if everybody will please cast their ballots into this box. I am pleased to announce apparently, since all past elections have been decided by who can fit more jumbo marshmallows in their mouth, congratulations to our new president, Eddie Grantwood.
Technically, kitchen stuff. Technically, pantry stuff. Okay, Jack. Clearly you're in here messing with my things. Jack! Where are you? Fine. Technically it is pantry stuff.
Thank you! That's exactly what I wanted to hear.
What are you doing and how did you get in here?
Well, how do I always get in?
I don't know. You're like an annoying nightmare that just won't go away.
Well, technically, I wouldn't be a nightmare because it's daytime. And you, my friend, are not sleeping.
No. Jack! You're such a...
Well, you played a part in that. You were a great tutor.
What? Are you firing me?
Well, no. But you're leaving. I'll have to find someone else to teach me to be an... Where will I find such a person?
Jack, I'm only going to college. It's a pretty big deal for someone like me.
Someone like you?
You know, with my family drama and stuff.
Yeah,
Bigger.
I know. So what's in this box? Bed animals. What are bed animals?
They're animals that I put on my bed.
And what's this one?
This is Mr. Bunny. He's special. Maybe you could come to college with me.
I can't, Rach. You have to do this one on your own.
I'm scared.
According to a study done by Washington State University, 65% of children have an imaginary friend by the age of 7.
The majority of this percentage uses their imaginary friend as a coping mechanism. According to healthchildrens.com, approximately 3 million cases of child abuse occur each year.
This is a story for every kid who's a victim of child abuse and every kid with an imaginary friend.
You are not defined by what you've been through. Gone, by Christy Thomas.
So where are you going to put all these boxes?
I don't know, Jack. Maybe you could help me instead of talking?
Okay, but I don't know if you're ready to go to college on the other side of the country.
Why?
You've got stuff you need to deal with here. You sleep with a stuffed bunny, for goodness sake. You can't make a decision without passing it through me, and I am your voice of reason.
Jack, I've had that bunny since as long as I can remember, and I told you you could come to college with me.
I can't.
Can't or won't.
Both. Don't you see, Rach?
You're giving me one of my headaches again.
Open your mind. Like when the doctor tells you to remember your childhood, it's like that.
That crap never works. I open my eyes and I don't see anything different than what I'm seeing right now.
You don't trust her. Trust me. Sit down. Close your eyes. And think. What do you see?
I'm a little girl playing on the swings.
And who are you playing with?
A little boy.
Well, what happened?
The little boy's gone. I don't know where he went. I walk into the kitchen and the little boy's sitting on the floor crying. Why is he crying? What's wrong? Do you want to go back outside and play with me?
He said if I left this spot, he was going to kill me.
It's okay. Grab my hand and we'll go and we'll...
Rachel. What do you see?
My father is standing in front of the door. He won't let us leave. And then he grabs my little brother and he... My mind is so shaken, I can't, things are connecting, I can't focus. They're not real.
I told you you weren't a good boy, crying all the time. I told your mom something wasn't right with you. I should have never taken you home from the hospital.
And then he beat him like he was a boxer in the ring. But the bell doesn't ring, it doesn't stop. And then he grabs my little brother and he shakes him until he's dead. My father killed him.
Me. You killed me, Rach.
But I thought you were...
You have to see what's real now. You were... Where were you?
I was watching.
You sat on the couch and you watched me die.
Oh no, Jack. I watched you die. So many people are talking in my head. Shut up! Shut up!
Rachel! You control them. You created them. After I died, you couldn't take the abuse alone.
I didn't want to take the abuse alone. I created you to hold on to the little brother that I lost.
I don't know why you chose to hold on to me.
Because I should have done something. I should have said something. I should have went to the kitchen and grabbed a knife out of the kitchen counter and stabbed him. But I didn't. I sat there on the couch and watched my little brother get murdered right before my eyes. How do I forget?
You can't. You have to see it and push through.
He beat me that night. Didn't stop for years. I remember the night you came out of my closet and slept on the side of my bed. I felt so safe. I love you.
And as long as you love me, I'll never die. But I can't continue like this, and you can't continue thinking this is okay. Don't let him kill both of us. I have to leave tonight. But I need you to make me a promise that you'll keep fighting.
Well, Mr. Bunny, I guess it's just you and me. Promise.
I've lived 20 pretty bird years of this great big life, and I think I, pretty bird, pretty much know what I'm talking about. People like to poke fun at pretty bird, but look at my long, clean coat, at my pretty bird, pretty pink legs. When pigeon men track me cross sky highway, they're happy to chase hungry orange eyes between my pretty bird feathers. To pretty poke bird fun, to pretty poke fun bird, to pretty bird, too busy fantasizing to poke fun at permanently preening pretty bird. When I was 7, I wanted nothing more than to be beautiful. A blonde girl, a woman, with a miniskirt name like Sarah or Jennifer. Instead, I was named Shannon, a name with mouse brown hair. Living in a world where success is determined more by what I look like than by what I have to offer is challenging. We struggle to find a wholesome idea of beauty because our world's lens is jaded. Now, when men and women alike judge, cut each other down, we Photoshop our own pictures and shame those who are different. Our society is broken. But through the poems, Song of the Pretty Bird by Shea Alexie Stewart, Pretty by Katie Mackay, Love Letter, a triad of solos by Melissa May, and Pretty by Shani Monet, comes a woven program. Because it's time to stand up against these unrealistic ideas of beauty, find self-acceptance, and model this behavior for generations to come. I asked my mother, will I be pretty? Will I be pretty? Will I be pretty? What comes next? Oh, yeah. Will I be rich? Which is almost pretty depending on where you shop. And the pretty question infects from conception. Will I be wanted? Worthy? Pretty? Things I did for beauty. In junior high, I spent a half an hour before volleyball practice every day curling my hair Once I dropped my curling iron on my leg and my thigh read Revlon for a week. All because I wanted my hair curly for volleyball. Practice. I wore deodorant on and in places that did not require it. And I tried to convince my mom to drop me off at popular girls' birthday parties, to which I was not invited. Puberty left me this funhouse mirror. And by 16, I was laying in a hospital bed. Face packed with gauze, cushioning the brand new nose my surgeon carved. My belly gorged on 2 pints of my own blood as my body was screaming at me from the inside out, "What did you let them do to you?" Pigeon Man wants pretty bird to pretty bird until she fulfills ideas of prettiness. Look at my long, clean coat. At my pretty bird, pretty pink legs. Track me cross sky highway. Take a picture. I beg you, take a picture. My left side is my best side. I have a best side. I have a better half. I am a half. I grew up on a diet of breadcrumbs, catalog clippings, and sidewalk cracks. How do you expect anything else? Pretty sure I know what I'm talking about. Pretty sure. Pretty sure. Maybe not. Sorry. Dear body, this is my promise to you. I will not make jokes at your expense. Dear body, you are sexy. You're attractive. And you don't have to give pieces of it away to people just for saying so. Dear body, love yourself the way you deserve to be loved. Because this is about my own someday daughter. When you come to me already stung-stayed with insecurity, begging, "Mom, will I be pretty? Will I be pretty?" Pretty bird used to sing. But the reviews came in, and they preferred apology. So she shrank, but still she sang too loud. So they caged her up and they said, "Sing, pretty lady, sing." But I forgot how. So I said, "Pretty bird, look at my long, clean coat. At my pretty bird, pretty pink legs." But they were bored of me. The word pretty is unworthy of everything that you will be. You will be pretty amazing, pretty intelligent, pretty creative, but you will never be just pretty.
Time of death, death by. The hardest part about being a detective is learning the truth sometime. Take tonight, for instance. We get a call from one of the officers, and there was a young boy. His name was Tommy. And the last person to be seen with Tommy was his friend, Dustin. Hello, Dustin. I'm Detective Holmes. Here, so let's get started. Could you start by telling me your name? You already know my name. You said hello to me when you walked in the room. I'm Dustin Farmington. We all live in our own corner of reality. Yours a little different from mine. and mine even far more distant than Dustin's. Meet Dustin, a lover of superheroes with a bigger-than-life personality, a young man who is also mentally challenged, who has to jump over hurdles every day that you and I might not have to, but I think Obi-Wan Kenobi says it best. The truth we cling onto depends greatly on our point of view. Because no matter how hard we try to put our truth and our point of view into the gray, life is black and white. Dustin, by Leo Cannon. I'm 19 years old and I live with my parents. 612 Maple, and I have my own room and everything. It's decorated with some old Star Wars stuff. That used to be my dad's. Pew, pew. Pew, pew, pew. Pew, pew. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. May the Force be with you. I got lots of friends. There's Tommy, there's Jared, and sometimes Vin gets to play with us too, but his mother makes him stay home a lot. I know that Tommy just turned 11 because his parents had a huge party for him in their backyard, but my mom forgot to get me a present to take. So I looked around my room for something to take to Tommy's party, and I gave him one of my action figures. It was the Hulk. The Hulk was missing a hand. But Tommy said it was cool anyway. He said he would just pretend that the Hulk was born that way. Tommy's got a good imagination. We're always playing something up. Sometimes we like to play superheroes. But Tommy and Jared and Vince say I'm too big to be a superhero. I have to be the bad guy. I don't want to be the bad guy. I always want to be the good guy. We're best friends. There's an empty parking lot a couple of streets over where we go to play baseball. We went there to play baseball, but then Jared said he wanted to play martial arts. Martial arts? Oh, like the guys on TV. But then Vin's mom came to get him. And Jared said that he should probably head home too, so that just left me and Tommy. But I told Tommy that I knew I was bigger than him, so I wouldn't be too rough on him. But Tommy said, come on, show me what you got. He trusted me. And so I put my shoes by this tree, and I would lift him in the air, and he was struggling, trying to get away from me, so I decided to spin it, turn, and then I decided to throw him to the ground. And when I looked at Tommy, Tommy was quiet. Real quiet. And I started to yell at him. And I said, Tommy! Get up, Tommy! Tommy, get up! Tommy, get up! Okay? Get up. Okay? His neck was crooked. And there was a little bit of blood coming out of his mouth. And my mom told me that when someone is bleeding to get a Band-Aid on it. So I told Tommy to wait right there. And it looked like it was going to rain. I didn't want his new shoes getting wet. Then Mom started to yell at me. She said I couldn't go help Tommy until my chores were done, and I tried to tell her about Tommy, but she wouldn't listen to me. She wouldn't listen to me. She wouldn't listen to me. Is everything okay? Is Tommy okay? Did his mother give him a Band-Aid? Dustin, I need to talk to your parents for a minute, okay? So just sit there and hold tight. Oh, and Dustin, may the Force be with you, my friend. May the Force be with you.
The next thing we're going to do is called Extemporaneous speaking. This is George Wallace. The cool thing about Extemp is that these kids have no idea what they are going to talk about until they walk into the draw room. So they walk into an auditorium and they're given 3 topics, or they draw 3 out of a stack, an envelope, and from those 3 they get to pick one. And then they have 30 minutes to prep, which is what George is going to do for you tonight. So George. He's going to tell you what his choices are.
Should the United States halt arms sales to Saudi Arabia? How should California combat the current housing crisis? And how should the global community address the attacks in Sri Lanka? I'm going to go with, should the United States halt arms sales to Saudi Arabia?
And you'll see him in 30 minutes, which is right after intermission. And until then, enjoy the next duet.
Da, 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 da.
This movie, it's so beautiful. I'm all alone.
All right, Ping, cover me. I'm going in. Oh, watch out! They're everywhere. No, Ping, I'm hit. No, I'm going down. No, Ping, you were supposed to cover me. Why, Ping? I'm all alone. I'm all alone.
Tinder.
Match.
45 and up.
eHarmony.
Farmers only.
What do all of these dating websites have in common? Unstable relationships.
Whether you stalked that guy you like on Instagram for 5 hours last night.
Or you slid into her DMs and got completely curved.
Or maybe you're wondering, is his profile picture him and his ex? Or simply a relative?
Either way, Our generation sets unattainable standards for what we think love should really be.
So basically, what we're trying to say is that if you see yourself in any of the situations we're about to show you, you're probably just going to end up
Crushed.
by Don Solitis.
Da, 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 da.
Are you my fairy godmother?
Yes. I'm only kidding. 22 hours of watching the Hallmark Channel has caused your brain to hemorrhage. And therefore, I have appeared to you.
But why?
What appears to me, and just about everyone else, is that you need a lot of help with love.
I do?
Da, 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 da.
And I'm here to help you.
You are?
Yes, what appears to me, and just about everyone else, is that you need to find a girlfriend.
Well, how do I get a girl to like me?
It's not as easy as you might think, but let's take a minute and show you how not to do it.
How not to do it? Lesson number 1.
Desperation.
Da, 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 da.
This is such a great date.
Yeah.
I love you. Do you love me? I mean, you don't have to answer, but if you had to put a timeline on it, when approximately do you think you're gonna love me? I love you, and I will always love you, even if I die. I will return from beyond the grave and never leave you.
Oh! I think I just had a stroke, and I think it's best that I stay in the hospital for a while. Lesson number 2. Do not be direct and clear. Da, 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 da.
Hey,
Hey, what are you doing?
looking good.
I'm sorry?
You heard me? Looking good.
Actually, I have a girlfriend.
Duh. That does not change the fact that you are looking good. My name's Manda,
Amanda?
as in Amanda, but I shortened it to Manda. Get straight to point.
I should get going, really.
Where are you going?
I'm on my way.
Oh, little mysterious man. How about we get those mysteries together? Pum, 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 pum. That's like the rhythm of my soul.
Someone help me.
I like the way you run.
Mommy!
I'm your mommy now. Lesson number 3. Do not be overly sensitive.
Da, 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 da.
So, what do you think of the movie? What do you think of the movie?
I really thought it was beautiful how he gave her the same toy piano that she used to have when she was a little girl.
Yeah, I like that part too. What's wrong?
I was just thinking about how long ago it was when we first started dating.
It was last month.
It was 39 days ago. What are we going to do with that time? Where does it go?
I think it just disappeared.
Oh, I don't want it to just disappear. I want to smell the butterflies with you again.
I don't think they have a smell.
I wanted to give you this.
You adopted a starving third world child for me?
It's my way of giving back to the world so I can...
What now?
I just realized I'll never be a mother.
You're a guy!
So I can't have maternal feelings?
No! What is that?
It's a sympathy suit. It allows me what it feels like to have extra pregnancy weight on.
I don't want you to have extra pregnancy weight.
You don't?
No, I want you to crush soda cans on your head, wear your baseball cap backwards, and make gross jokes with your friends. You know, be a total unfeeling rock of a human being. That's what I'm looking for.
You are?
Yes!
Well, you know, that really hurt my feelings. All alone, with the baby on the way.
Da.
Da 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 da.
Well, I think you're ready for your date.
Let's do it.
Shower first.
Can I just skip the shower and put on cologne instead?
No. And go put something nice on.
Da 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 da. There. Now you have everything. You are perfect, just the way you are.
I am.
Of course not. He doesn't want you. He wants an illusion of you. Now, go change a lot of things about yourself while you're at it.
Okay. Let's do it.
Da 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 da.
Hi.
Hey. Hi.
I wasn't looking forward to this too much.
Me either. I have no feelings.
Well, I might make a few mysterious comments now and then that could be interpreted in many different ways.
I don't care about your feelings at all. I mean, I just stated I have none of my own. And when people throw things at me, I don't even cry.
I'm so attracted to you right now.
Did you say you love me?
Well, I didn't. But I can. I love you.
I love you.
I cried at the beginning of Marley and Me.
I cried at the end of Marley and Me.
Let's get married.
Let's have kids.
How many?
17. Or 2.
I can do that.
If I were to ask you to tell me about the most important part of yourself, what would you say? Your nose? Your face? Your backside? Many of us would likely choose something on the outside of our bodies. And I would have done the same a few years ago myself, but now I know I have one most important part. Ding! My mind. According to Save.org, there is one death every 12 minutes due to suicide in the US alone. It's time to take a stand because 80 to 90% of people who are suffering from depression but seek treatment are successfully treated. For me, it was the people around me who encouraged me to seek help through counseling when I was facing some of my darkest moments. Through the prose, Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson, woven with the articles Are You Your Own Worst Enemy by Robert Lee, and How to Stop Being Your Own Worst Enemy by Jessica Groom, we will see that it's important to remember that your mind matters. Have you ever had the thought, there is no way I can do this? Or, I am such a freaking idiot! These are all thoughts that have come from your own mind, but you can do it. And you are not a freaking idiot. And even if you are, you're normal. It is life. Another normal part of life for 19 million people is depression. It's that feeling that you'll never be right again, and you're so tired from fighting that you start to listen to all the little lies your brain tells you, the ones that say, you're a drain on your family. You know, maybe, if you were better or stronger, this wouldn't be happening to you. It is all in your head. It's so easy to forget that I've been here before and come out on the other side. I used to feel a lot of guilt about having depression, but then I realized that's a lot like feeling guilty for having brown hair. It's unrealistic, but it's normal. I felt the same when Smokey the Bear was all, "Only you can prevent forest fires." Only me? That really seems like it should be more of a team effort kind of thing. Wait, that doesn't make any sense because aren't some forest fires started by lightning? Because I can't stop lightning, bears. I'm not God. I can't stop lightning or swamp gas or spontaneous combustion. Or depression. These are all things that just happen, and they shouldn't be blamed on me, so stop blaming the victims. We so often take the time to look after our bodies, but how often do you do something for your mind? We bombard ourselves with information overload, social media, emails, it never stops. We never make time for time. My anxiety and depression were so extreme that I couldn't really keep them much of a secret. But what I got back in return for being honest about my struggle was an enormous wave of voices saying, "You aren't alone, and we always knew you were crazy, but we're still here, and we're proud of you." And louder than all of that were the voices that became stronger every day from thousands and thousands of people creeping to the edge and quietly admitting, "Me too." I thought it was just me. I have a folder that's labeled the folder of 24. Inside it are letters from 24 people who were actively in the process of planning their own suicide, but who stopped and got help because, well, me too. So, what can you do right now to start treasuring your mind? Number 1, identify your negative thoughts. They may be so automatic that you don't even notice them. And number 2, replace self-criticism with self-reward. Just give yourself some credit. And number 3, do you really need to evaluate yourself? No! Focus on your specific goals without criticizing. One of my favorite quotes is this: "All the darkness in the world cannot extinguish the light of a single candle." Your mind is that candle, and it's up to you to keep it lit.
When businesses strive to meet the needs of consumers, they oftentimes follow the 3 pillars of consumerism. 1, the consumer needs to have transparency. They need to know that the product is safe to use, functional, and adaptable. Next, the product has to have inspection. The consumer needs to know that the product is moral and functions properly. And finally, the product has to have adaptation. It has to be able to change with the future and change to future times. So, when we look at the 3 pillars of consumerism, we don't just have to apply it to business models, we can also apply it to the question we have posed today. Should the US halt arms to Saudi Arabia? The answer is a clear and evident no. But to better understand why it's a no, we need to look at it through 3 points of analysis. First, we analyze transparency. We look at the status quo within Saudi Arabia and the proxy war in Yemen. Next, we're going to look at inspection. And this is where we're going to analyze the strength of the alliance between Saudi Arabia and the United States of America and how it's vital to stability in the region. Finally, we're going to look at adaptation in the future and how the strength of the alliance between Saudi Arabia and the United States of America could indeed lead to domestic reform. So first, we're going to look at transparency and analyze what's going on right now in Saudi Arabia. We look at an article posted by CNN on September 19th of 2019. They talk about how with Saudi Arabia and the proxy war going on in Yemen, there's a lot of bad things going on. And in that civil war, in the proxy war between Saudi Arabia and the Houthi rebels who are backed by Iran, is perpetuating out of proportion than what we saw in recent years. And because of this, we're seeing that Saudi Arabia, while the good guys in this fight, oftentimes their intentions are not executed properly. And the execution of those intentions often leaves those civilians hurt. In fact, an article posted by the New York Times on November 15th of 2018 talks about how in the early parts of November, a Saudi-led airstrike struck a school bus of 53 children aged 8 to 12. And while what I'm saying right now might lead you into the direction to think that halting arms sales is the right way to go, we can still see that the ends will justify the means. In fact, if the U.S. were to pull arms sales out of Saudi Arabia, a bigger and badder nation would step in. In fact, an article by the Washington Post posted on March 14th of 2019 talks about how Saudi Arabia is already in talks of purchasing a new missile defense system from Russia. And if that arms deal were to blow into full proportion, what would happen is that essentially Russia wouldn't hold Saudi Arabia as accountable for human rights violations as the United States does right now. And essentially what we would see is another civil war falling into the hands of Saudi Arabia. So what we've looked at so far is transparency and understood the status quo of what's going on right now in Saudi Arabia. Now, we need to look at inspection and analyze how the strength of the alliance could determine the stability within the region of the Middle East. We look at an article posted by the RAND Corporation on February 16th of 2019. They discuss how the stability of the region of the Middle East is completely reliant upon the U.S. relationship with Saudi Arabia. And the relationship is dependent on the arms sales we have going on right now. And how if we want to stabilize the region, bring peace to Yemen and peace to the Middle East, hopefully someday, it's completely reliant upon the relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia, which is catalyzed through the arms deal. And we can see that effectively, the arms deal is a lot more about domestic reform and human rights than it is about legitimizing a trade deficit. And when we look at an article posted by the Cato Institute on December 12th of 2019, they also talk about how if the U.S. were to pull out of the region of Saudi Arabia, it would lead the progressive administration of bin Salman open to threats in the Middle East, open to the Iranian threats, the Houthi rebels, and threats within the own Saudi government. And we could see reversion back to a civil war that would put Saudi Arabia effectively 100 years back in history. That's not at all what we want. But so far, we've analyzed transparency, we've analyzed inspection, looked at the status quo and the strength of the alliance. Now we need to look toward the future, look toward adaptation, and see how that takes place. So, through adaptation, we can indeed see that through this trade and arms deal, what would happen is more domestic reform within Saudi Arabia. The current administration we see right now in Saudi Arabia is one more progressive than we've ever seen before under bin Salman and Prince Mohammed. And of course, through this relationship with Saudi Arabia, the U.S. is influencing a lot of soft power through a more democratic nation, a more prosperous and free nation. In fact, in bin Salman's proposed 2030 vision, he wants to see more socio-economic mobility and better women's rights. In fact, in the past few months alone, we can see in an article posted by the Brookings Institute that women, by royal decree, were finally given the right to drive. And while that seems old and archaic to us in the United States, it's a big, bold move by the government of Saudi Arabia to finally give women more rights within the nation. Not 10 years ago, the nation was still heavily influenced by Sharia law. And now, women are finally given the access to drive and go out in public without being accompanied by a male. And through these increasing human rights and women's rights within Saudi Arabia, we see that this can be credited toward the U.S. having heavy influence over the region. In fact, in an article posted by Bloomberg News on October 19th of 2018, they talk about how in the same vision in 2030, bin Salman said, and quote, he would like to see a nation more tolerant of all religions. This is a quote we never really see from nations like Saudi Arabia, where 10 years ago, they were still heavily influenced by Sharia law. And saying quotes like this could indeed lead to a more progressive nation, with more socially economic mobility, with more freedom, more prosperous nation, and nation more democratic. So, when analyzing all 3 points, looking at both the recent historical events, the inspection into the strength of the alliance and how it could provide stability to the region, and how in the future we might be able to use this trade deal as ways to reform a lot of domestic issues we see within Saudi Arabia, we can see that the ends indeed justify the means, and that when being posed the question today, should the U.S. halt arms to Saudi Arabia, the answer is a clear and evident no.
You think they'd find a new way of giving us a spill?
Could you be quiet? I'm trying to listen.
You know what I think they're trying to tell us is that we all have cancer. Shh. Oh, so you're a shusher. You know what? Don't worry. Sooner or later, we'll all be singing a chorus of "I will survive." Na 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 na. No 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 no. You know, your lips are kind of sexy when
Look! I know, you're just trying to make a friend. But I need these meetings. Don't you?
Well, I mean, yeah. I have to talk to humans too.
Yeah, I guess this disease can get pretty lonely.
You know, I think I'm gonna like you. What's your name?
Kristen.
Oh, I'm surprised you didn't say Cancer Victim 974B.
What's yours?
I'm Ryan. Sorry if I seem a little bit too, sarcastic. It's just when Mark runs these meetings.
You come here a lot?
Yeah, a couple times a week. You?
I'm just starting. I'm not so sure if I like it.
You know, me and you should go out and do something fun.
I don't know.
Oh, come on. 2 dates, that's all I'm asking.
2? Most guys settle for just 1.
Well, I'm not most guys. I like variety. Let's say we go ice skating. Is that the only test to see if we're compatible?
I don't know.
Oh, come on. 1 goofy high schoolish date, and then 1 romantic date. You don't like either of them, you can go back, listen to these meetings in peace and quiet. Oh, come on, don't tell me your dancing card's already full.
No.
No?
I'll try it. What can it hurt? According to the American Cancer Society, there will be an estimated 629,000 cancer deaths in the United States just this year.
And what are these victims that have cancer supposed to do when these victims have incurable diseases?
Meet Kristen, who starts attending cancer support group meetings where she meets Ryan. And after some bonding over their common inhuman enemy, they soon learn that love truly is the best medicine by Joshua Sands.
Oh, come on, you missed!
Okay, when you said goofy and high schoolish, I didn't think we'd end up at the fair.
Okay, all you have to do is have the right precision and force, and you can knock them all over.
Wow, you sound like an expert.
Well, I did this when I was goofy and high schoolish.
Really? I was too busy going to cheerleading camp. And tennis camp. And...
Okay, overachiever. Hate to say it, but all we are now are some cancer victims. There's no more strenuous effort to try to make our future brighter. Just focus on today. Those bottles. This ball.
Wow, that's all?
I mean, yeah. Focus on what you can control. Your mind. Your heart. Any way to get through the day with a few chuckles or two. It helps.
You learned that from Mark?
No. I learned that the hard way, through practice.
Hey, wait!
Yes!
Nice throw.
Hey, Chris. It's Ryan. Wanted to see if you wanted to schedule date number 2.
Oh, you were serious about the pair of dates thing.
Well, I mean, yeah. Were you?
Sure. What'd you have in mind?
Romance. That's what I promised, right? Put on your nicest cocktail dress. I'll pick you up around 7. No, that won't work. I have to go talk to the witch doctor about the cancer's pigmenting my liver.
What?
Nothing. I'll pick you up at 7:30. Bye.
So, a boat, champagne, dancing.
Might think I'm trying to show off, huh?
Yeah, I might think that.
Well, are you at least having fun?
Yeah. It amazes me how I forget everything with you. Do you even think about dying?
Dying? How could I ever think about dying? I could be dancing with you.
Hey, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's just the boat or the ocean. I don't know, but I'm fine.
Let's take a breather.
Okay. Deal. This is the part of the meeting where Mark asked for prayer requests.
Very nice, Nostradamus.
Yeah, sooner or later we're all gonna be standing up saying, "So, yeah, I got this cancer thing."
I don't think I'm gonna come to these meetings anymore.
Wait. No, why?
Why should I? You don't like them, and I'd rather be with Ryan, my boyfriend, rather than Ryan, the cancer meeting smart aleck.
You don't like my jokes?
No, I just want to separate this from our relationship.
Chris, you know that won't work. Promise me you will come on Friday.
Fine. I promise. Hey, it's Kristen. I showed up last night. It was the one at St. Andrews, right? Where were you? Give me a call, okay? Bye.
It was nothing.
Ryan, you had me so worried.
I know, it was just I felt queasy and I fell asleep. Everyone thought I passed out.
You spent the whole weekend in the hospital.
I know, Chris, but you have to think of cancer as this great big old ball game, and I haven't struck out yet. This weekend was like the 7th inning stretch.
Are you sure you're all right?
I'm fine, Chris. I have a green tongue. You want to see it?
No, Ryan.
Okay, I know I missed the meetings. I'll pull a double on Tuesday. I promise.
Ryan?
Okay, how about another pair of dates this time? Let's say snowboarding to show this time.
No, Ryan! No! Don't try out for a cancer comedy troupe. Don't give me these one-liners anymore. Just talk to me. Just talk to me, Ryan. We are dying here. We only have a few months to fit everything in, and you're wasting it all with this crap, Ryan.
Crap? Is this what you call crap? You and me? Having lunch at the bistro, the fair? If that's all crap, then what's real, Chris?
I don't know.
I'll tell you what's real. You and me. Spending time together, doing everything together until it's all over, Chris, that is what's real.
Your cancer is real too.
I know. But you can't let it consume you. Promise me you won't let it.
Hi, my name's Kristen, and I have colon cancer. I don't know how to do this on my own. You see, I met my boyfriend in here, and now it's just me. And he used to always be the one to make me laugh, but now...
There's no more strenuous effort to try to make our future brighter. Just focus on today.
I mean, I can still hear him speaking to me.
Just focus on what you can control. Your mind, your heart. Any way to get through the day with a few chuckles or two. It helps.
And he makes sense, but it's really hard to keep the words alive when he's gone. I mean, all I want to do is get up here and tell all of you how this is going to give us all green tongues. But see, you're not laughing? I guess you just had to be there.
You and me, Chris. You and me. All right, we're going to go ahead and get this debate started. I'm going to be the presiding officer for this round, and we are also going to start off with Representative Bryce Fant and Representative Payson Epley with the bill to halt all arms sales to Saudi Arabia. So be it enacted by the Congress here assembled that Section 1, the United States shall halt future arms sales to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Section 2, arms sales shall be defined as the trade or sale of weaponry and ammunition, including battle tanks and machine guns. Section 3, the Department of The Department of Defense are responsible for the enforcement of this legislation. Failure to comply with this legislation will result in the budget of the responsible department to be decreased by 30% for 5 years. Section 4. This bill will go into effect on January 1st, 2021. Section 5. All laws in conflict with this legislation are hereby declared null and void. Representative Bryce Pant, you do have the floor.
When a man carries an instrument of violence, he will always find a justification to use this. Western philosopher Brian Vaughan once said this, and when we're asked the question on whether or not we should halt arms sales to Saudi Arabia, I can think of no better person to quote than him himself. So in order to help answer why we should halt arms sales to Saudi Arabia, we'll go through 2 key points of analysis. The first, that Saudi Arabia has been negligent with United States weaponry, and the second is that other solutions have long been ineffective, and we'll go over those later. So let's jump straight into our first point of analysis, or more importantly, the negligence with US weaponry that Saudi Arabia has shown. According to an interview conducted by CNN on the 28th of August in 2018, reports that when prompted, United States Secretary of Defense James Mattis was finally asked the question, at what point is enough enough? This was obviously in reference to some of the deaths that have occurred due to United States weaponry in the hands of the Saudi Arabian military. Now, to go further upon this, looking at an article posted by The Guardian on the 19th of August in 2018, is that one of the strikes ended in 51 deaths and 79 people being injured. The matter of fact was that it was a school bus full of children, completely innocent children. Now, this wasn't the problem with the weapon. That's what some of the things that people prompt with this, is that the weapon is what caused the problem. But we easily see that with the GBU-12 Payway 2, it's a laser-guided missile with a near 0% failure rate. And the matter of fact is that it was negligence on the Saudi Arabian Air Force's problem that caused this issue in the first place. So we see that Saudi Arabia has been negligent with the weapons that they have simply because they can. And now we move on to my second point, the other solutions being ineffective. If we look at an article posted by USA Today on the 12th of September in 2018, our government has long been turning a blind eye. In fact, the Department of Defense has long recognized some of the human rights violations that Saudi Arabia has been committing in the proxy wars with Yemen. Now, the matter of fact is that, again, they've been negligent with most of the issues that we've seen today, and the United States government recognizes, and we've been completely blind to it and haven't taken action. So, in order to help spread democracy in today's world, we shouldn't do it through arms sales. We should do it with the power that we have with our economy, and we should do it with the power that we have with other nations, instead of selling arms, causing wars, and having people die simply because we want to provide and build our economy based off of a war.
What will happen to the terrorist-led civil war right now in Yemen?
Okay, so the matter of fact is that the terrorist-led war is a problem within that country, but we can't keep providing military weapons to help aid bloodshed in that war when it's causing these problems.
So should we let terrorism run rampant in Yemen instead and let people die that way?
Absolutely not. The way that we should solve this problem is not through aiding with weapons, but instead aiding through the economy and providing human rights aids rather than giving them the weapons to kill people in school buses.
And what happens when countries like Iran keep funding terrorists who are killing civilians just as equally?
That should be the problem with the United States. Instead of using Saudi Arabia as a proxy, the United States should act on their own behalf instead of using Saudi Arabia as a way to solve their problem.
So ignore the terrorism, attack the country directly?
Absolutely not. What we should use is the United States arsenal instead of selling weapons into hands that we can't control entirely.
All right, that's time. Thank you. Representative Payson Eppley, you have the floor.
Hello? Maybe. Go turn it on. Hello? There you go. Hi, guys. I want to share a story with all of you. A story of a powerful nation lending weapons to a smaller nation, but then turning around and condemning it, halting arms sales, even placing sanctions. This country then turns around, gets funded by Russia, now has its own nuclear arsenal to dispense, and now has citizens screaming death to America in the streets. This isn't Saudi Arabia that I'm referencing, but instead Iran, the person leading the proxy war right now in Yemen. The fact is we can't let them run this war, run this terrorism, because right now we're funding one side. If we stop funding one side, then the other side falls. Not only this brief look of history affects our decision on this piece of legislation, but also these 2 key points. First, the reality of the Middle East. And then second, looking at the importance of American influence. Looking at the reality of the Middle East,
the Human Rights Watch does go on to explain that there have been unlawful bombings from Saudi Arabia. That happens to be the only human rights violation upon them. When we have the enemy, when we have terrorists in Yemen from Iran who are raping, beheading, and spreading fear in the Middle East, but not only in the Middle East. In cases like 9/11, spreading fear directly to American soil. If we don't take attack to the reality of the Middle East, that this is an ideology and that simply using our economy and telling them don't bomb people, it's not going to work. Looking at the power of American influence, Saudi Arabia in no way is it perfect, but it is growing faster than any other Middle Eastern country. James Kordsman, a chairman of the SIS organization, goes on to explain that we need a non-radical and a trusting ally in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia is taking great bounds that we never even thought possible. They've lifted the ban of allowing women to drive. They've also arrested several corrupt leaders in the Jamal Khashoggi killings, and even the commanders and generals in charge of these bombings. Overall, let us not ignore history. Let us not remain stagnant and allow history to repeat itself, where in the end, people are harmed. Civilians are harmed. But we need to look at the bigger picture. We need to see that we need to do anything we can to halt the radical ideology spreading through Yemen and spreading through Iran.
All right, so should we really be solving the problems in the Middle East by using weapons instead of using the arsenal that the United States has with its economy?
Okay, so the problem is if you're using our arsenal of economy, they're still using weapons. And then you have, instead of a war, you have a slaughter.
Okay, but if we cut off all these weapons in the main sense that they're not getting the weapons from us, aren't we solving some of the issues we see with negligence with such powerful weapons?
Again, Iran terrorists aren't being negligent. Instead, they're completing their mission, and we're not going to be stopping them if we don't have weapons on the right side.
But isn't the resolution talking about Saudi Arabia specifically?
Yes, we need to look at what Saudi Arabia is doing with those weapons, and although they're not perfect, they are halting terrorism spreading through Iran.
That now brings us to our next piece of legislation with Representative Alessandra Gutierrez and Hannah Kim. This is a bill to limit vaccine exemptions to reinforce herd immunity. Be enacted by the Congress here assembled at Section 1. The United States federal government shall hereby require that for a child to be exempt from the CDC vaccination schedule, the child's parents must provide written authorization from a doctor based on health risk posed to the children. Exemptions include both religious and philosophical exemptions. The vaccines that will be mandated are hepatitis B, MMR, and hepatitis A. If parents fail to have their child vaccinated for any reason other than medical exemptions, they will not be allowed to attend public school at any level. Herd immunity is defined as a communal resistance to the spread of a contagious disease with a population that results from 90% to 95% of individuals being vaccinated. Section 3, the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Education will work in conjunction to prevent unvaccinated children from attending school. Section 3, Part A. The Department of Education will share all information pertaining to vaccinations with the Department of Health and Human Services. Section 3, Part B. If any school fails to meet the previous mentioned criteria, they will be denied every single type of federal education funding. Section 4. This bill should go into effect by 2020. Section 5. All laws in conflict with this legislation are hereby declared null and void. Representative Alessandra Gutierrez, you do have the floor.
A commonly accepted piece of advice states, discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you need most. Keeping that in mind, we can look at the current polarization within the United States today between the uprising wave of parents not wanting to vaccinate their children and those on the opposition. However, by looking at two key areas of analysis, we can see that we must pass today's piece of legislation in order to limit vaccine exemptions and not allow herd immunity to fall to risk. So first, we have to look at the insufficiency of current laws in place in regards to exemptions on vaccines. According to the American Academy of Family Physicians, on July 20th of 2018, recent studies find quote-unquote disturbing trends in vaccination exemptions, causing a dangerously high risk for outbreaks here domestically. This is credited to the increase in non-medical exemptions in 2/3 of all states allowing philosophical exemptions in the last year alone. The AAFP furthermore sees potential for outbreak in 7 highly populated areas across the United States, including our very own Houston, Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, this can only be due to how easy it is to receive exemptions, especially with some states only requiring a bona fide to receive a religious exemption, and other states requiring nothing more than an online education course on vaccines to receive a philosophical exemption. Therefore, although we might not see a huge risk now, we have to protect ourselves and future generations in regard to these spreadable diseases. Additionally, we have to look at the ethical reasoning behind passing today's piece of legislation. The negation may come up here and discuss the supposed infringement of rights that this bill presents. However, we can see that the opposite is true because there is a fine line between protecting individual rights for beliefs that parents may or may not actually have and placing our constituency at risk. We are already seeing outbreaks, what Al Jazeera on April 2nd of 2019 recognizes as the highest rates of certain preventable diseases in the United States that we have seen in decades. These diseases are already on the rise, and in order to protect ourselves and our children, we have to pass today's legislation. So after looking at the insufficiency of current laws and the greater good, there is no other logical option.
Representative, how is this bill actually addressing insufficiency of current laws?
Well, currently, this is the only suggestion we have in order to combat the insufficiency of current laws. So we present this bill, we get more sufficient laws.
Isn't this bill an overreach of the federal government?
Of course not. We already see precedents with the federal government engaging with vaccine exemptions. So by passing this legislation, we're only furthering that precedence and allowing the federal government to do its job.
But is it not true that in the status quo, the states have control over who gets what exemptions in their state?
Well, yes and no. The federal government does require some requirements from these states, so they still have precedence.
Thank you. If we allow the government to disregard individual rights with this vaccines bill, will there be a precedent set in the future?
Of course not, because we're disregarding the individual rights with passing this piece of legislation. We're only protecting our constituency.
But isn't it true that there could be a slippery slope of precedent set between this vaccines bill because vaccines is a fundamental right of personal belief?
No, there is no slippery slope involved.
Thank you.
The United States is built on the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. However, with the issue of vaccines, these rights are being jeopardized. While there is concern over the recent outbreaks, we must negate this bill to limit vaccine exemptions to reinforce herd immunity because of 2 key reasons. First, the fundamental rights of the United States citizen and the failure of this bill to actually reinforce herd immunity. While the affirmation might claim that the rights of the individual should not be considered over the rights of the majority, the United States is founded on the inalienable individual rights provided by the Constitution. In fact, the very First Amendment claims freedom of religion and personal belief. This legislation is trampling on the fundamental rights of the constituency, and the nation has a responsibility to protect the rights of each individual as much as the majority. So we must negate this bill. Further, contrary to the affirmative's claim, this piece of legislation presented today does not adequately reinforce herd immunity. The bill outlines herd immunity as a communal resistance that results from 90 to 95% of the population being vaccinated. However, in the status quo, Contemporary Pediatrics on November 29th of 2018 states that 90% of children are vaccinated, well within herd immunity. Another article published on ABC on October 23rd of 2018 states that the CDC reports show that 1.3% of the population is not vaccinated, meaning 98.7% are fully vaccinated within the United States, well surpassing the standards for herd immunity. This bill is only disregarding the rights of the individual while not creating any actual change and reinforcing herd immunity, as herd immunity is strong in the country, is not at risk, and does not show any indication that it will be under risk in the future. There is an understandable concern in the United States, but this bill is not the solution, as this bill only infringes on the fundamental rights of the United States citizen and does not reinforce herd immunity in any way. We must vote negation on this bill.
Representative, even if herd immunity isn't at a major risk in the status quo, does that not mean that we aren't in a state of risk for the future?
As I outlined in my speech, the United States is well above and surpassing the standards for herd immunity, and there's no indication that there's any future risk presented. So by negating this bill, we're not going to be hurting any of the United States population.
Are increasing rates of exemptions not posing an indication of risk?
No, because even as we've seen a rise happening recently, we are still well within the limits of herd immunity, and as I've said, there's no risk actually proven.
So why should the supposed rights of individuals that may or may not actually have beliefs against vaccines come before the health of our constituency?
Because there's no actual risk being posed right now, all this bill is doing is going to be trampling on the fundamental rights of each of the United States citizens.
To our next piece of legislation, which will include Representative Grace Shelton and Representative Wyatt Hayes. This is a bill to promote privacy for public officials. Being enacted by the Congress here assembled that Section 1, the United States federal government mandate a minimum of 1 year of confidentiality be set for documents of public officials before they become accessible for public viewing to protect the privacy of public officials and their families. Section 2, public official is defined as any individual who holds political office. Documents is defined as any written form of work from a public official with intent of political reform or action, or any document from a court hearing of a public official. Section 3, the United States Department of Justice will oversee the implementation of this bill. Section 3, Part A, any individual or organization that does not comply will receive a fine determined by a court of law where adequate compensation will be decided based on the severity of the repercussions of the individual's or organization's actions. Section 4, this bill shall go into effect in the fiscal year of 2021. Section 5, all laws in conflict with this legislation are hereby declared null and void. Representative Shelton, you have the floor.
With the upcoming 2020 presidential election, I'm sure many of us are thinking back to 2016. What went wrong? Why was everybody so subtly worried about Hillary Clinton's emails and Donald Trump's past? We often forget that public officials need just as much privacy as American citizens, because they are, in fact, American citizens. So we passed today's piece of legislation first, because government officials need to be allowed the privacy and the privilege to deliberate with one another to allow progressive change to be made in the United States. According to The Atlantic on November 1st of 2018, for the same reasons that individual citizens need privacy so that they can better formulate ideas, so too do government officials to engage in frank discussions aimed at finding intelligent solutions. If we look at America's roots, passages such as the Constitution, the Louisiana Purchase, and the XYZ affair, all were screened away from public intervention. If we allow government officials to be able to deliberate with one another, we're allowing that the United States is going to have better passage in laws and in change. We must pass today's piece of legislation because the negation is only affirming that they are allowing their constituents to vote for them again in their upcoming term. We are only allowing that their constituency remains intact and that they are not at all solving for the American constituent at all. But moreover, let's actually look at some arguments that are going to be made by the negation today. More specifically, a Supreme Court case from 1964, Sullivan versus New York Times. What this Supreme Court entails is that the New York Times spoke out against racial segregation in the South. And in 1964, racial segregation and the civil rights movement was at an all-time high. This court case has nothing to do with this piece of legislation and is a broad interpretation at best as for a reason to negate today's piece of legislation. This also is another reason that the constitutionality argument made by the negation is going to be dropped. They're using this Supreme Court case as one of the main reasons that this goes against the Constitution, when in fact this is bolstering the Constitution. The Fourth Amendment alludes to the privacy of all American citizens, and if we don't allow this to be upheld like we've done in the past, we're not doing our jobs as congressmen and we are not fulfilling the American constituents' desire for us. So I ask the negation today to look towards the legislation, look towards the Constitution, and look towards your own arguments, because when they're brought up against the act, they ultimately fail.
Representative, if this bill is passed, will our politicians' actions not be hidden from the voting public?
Not at all. all, because the voting public, whether you're Republican or Democrat, you're always going to vote for your party. As we saw in 2016, apparently past doesn't matter. So Democrat is always going to vote for Democrat, and Republican is always going to vote Republican.
Well, how do we know that if the information is going to be hidden for 1 full year after a legal case might have happened that would change a voter's mind if they found out about it?
These citizens are still going to know what's going on. They're still going to know that their representative from their party is going to be either passing controversial legislation or talking about controversial legislation, or they're in a court case. All that's being excluded is the minute details that make up these court cases, that make up this legislation, that prevents them from being safe.
Fellow representatives, we all know how big of an issue public information regarding officials is. With the November hearings involving Brett Kavanaugh, we directly saw how public information was able to connect vital pieces of the case, such as who is involved and what changes our constituents need to make when electing politicians to represent them on the federal stage. You will see through the information I give to you that this legislation, although it has good intentions, fails to address the issue at hand and actually causes more problems than it fixes. And I say this for 2 main reasons. The first being that our constituents want the information to be public, and the second being that the federal government should not be the deciding factor for this matter. So, to build off of my first point, our constituents have an extensive responsibility to know who they're voting for, as it is their constitutional right. Those who argue in the affirmation for this bill want to avoid the past judicial precedents of New York Times v. Sullivan, which was dated in 1964. If you actually look at what the Supreme Court ruled, you will see that they decided politicians have no right to sue a media source for the publication of private information, no matter how damaging that information may be. They saw that American citizens should know exactly who they are voting for now, not 1 year after an election was held. This legislation allows politicians to avoid a public discourse about their actions, and the American people will ultimately feel betrayed. According to a Pew Research poll done on January 1st of 2019, 91% of Democrats and 32% of Republicans want President Donald Trump to release his tax returns and make them public. We have seen enough similar opinions from our constituents involving failure to release information to the public, such as the unredacted Mueller report, information on how terrorists are treated, and even information regarding the 2013 data dump made by Edward Snowden. And this brings me to my second point, which is that this is not an issue the federal government has jurisdiction over, as the states have already made a decision regarding this legislation. According to the National Conference of State Legislators in 2018, 42 states within our country have strict ethics laws regarding the private information of public officials or politicians. Ethics laws in the majority of these states require officials to release information about debts owed, property owned, gifts received or given, client lists, legal suits, both criminal and civil, and even details regarding their family. Each of these have the factor to be hidden under this legislation. Obviously, this legislation is incomplete at best and needs more time to be written so that the issue of privacy in public officials can be properly addressed. Our constituents deserve to know who they are voting for. They deserve complete transparency, and they deserve the responsibility to participate in our democracy in the most informed manner possible. For these reasons, please stand with me in a firm negation.
Representative, you acknowledged in your first point that the Kavanaugh case was blown widely out of proportions. However, you still suggest that the state level solves for this issue. How can the national level not have a better solvency for this issue rather than the state level?
Well, obviously, whenever we're passing this piece of legislation, we're not only talking about the national level, we're also talking about the state level, as it doesn't specify within this legislation who exactly is going to be, or who this legislation is going to be enforced to. And then also to hit your second point, the Kavanaugh cases were a very eye-opening thing for the United States, and as I said in my speech, it allowed our constituents to see what exactly went wrong and what changes they need to make when electing public officials in the future.
Okay. So Representative, I understand your concerns about how terrorists are treated, but I don't understand why the citizens of America want to know or want to have minute details such as tax return, debt owed, gifts paid for from public officials. Can you explain why that is such a big deal in the United States today?
Well, if you actually listened to my speech, you would have heard that I talked about legal cases too, which was within this legislation under the umbrella. This would be hidden by this legislation, and the voting public would not be able to see this information until 1 year after an election was held, and this legal cases or something like that could possibly change the voters' mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Back in the day, falling in love was easy.
Take caveman times, for example. You saw a girl you fancied, you take out your club. Wife. It was love at first hit. Oh, I'm sorry.
During medieval times, no effort was required at all. Your parents, who always had your best interests at heart, would find you the perfect man.
And Danny, meet your husband. Yay. I long for the 1950s. That's when it was the best for guys. All you had to do was throw a football. Ding! What's up, bro? Or drive a car. And you were set. Hey, baby girl, want to go steady?
Is that your ride?
Eat your heart out.
Peachy Keen, I'd love to wear your pin. I long for the days of Shakespeare, when men were romantic, wrote poems, and were in touch with their inner emotions.
Milady, milady, my heart beateth for you if like a heart that beateth. Will you marry me if?
My heart doth scream yes, and so apparently my mouth. Yes, let us weddeth. Back in the day, falling in love was easy. Finding love in the 21st century.
Now that's impossible.
According to ICan'tFindADate.com, society has seen a 70% decrease in the ability to find and maintain a stable relationship.
We have a problem, people, and it's affecting dates everywhere. Another study performed by Singleton University, published in the Journal of Reality, 1 in 75 people will never find true love. Means you, man.
We are here today as a reminder to follow your tender hearts.
And not your Tinder profiles.
Finding love in the 21st century.
By Jim Garvey. Oh my God, look at that guy.
What guy?
He's looking at me.
It's too loud, I can't hear what you said.
I can't hear.
Do 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 do.
Whoa.
Buy me a drink.
I know.
Buy me a drink.
Sure. I'd love a kiss.
Where are you supposed to meet people in the year 2019?
At a club where the music is so loud that you can't hear, or so dark that you can't see?
Today, there are over 7 billion people. Where is anyone supposed to find the one?
Elliot.
Oliver? Nice to find. Nice to.
Nice to finally meet you.
Likewise.
I have to be honest. I'm surprised it's actually you.
Oh, I was thinking the same thing. I mean, you hear horror stories.
About people not looking like their profile pictures?
Yeah, pictures from 5 years ago.
Or when they were 50 pounds lighter? And don't get me wrong, I think I'd like to go out with somebody regardless if they were a little overweight.
But it's an honesty thing. I'll have an iced skinny Winnie macchiato. I don't even like coffee.
What are we doing here?
Let's go somewhere else.
Hey, Elliot. It's Oliver. From last night?
No, the boy is supposed to call.
Hey, Elliot. It's Oliver. Sorry I didn't call. I'm in London. Oh, no.
It's the 21st century. A girl can do anything a guy can. But I want him to do this.
Hey, Elliot. How's it shaking, doll? Oh, no, definitely not.
Maybe he's hurt. I have to call him, right?
I'll text her.
Oliver? Oliver.
Elliot?
Oliver, are you okay? I thought I heard you scream or...
No, I just dropped my phone.
Oh, well, just called because I thought maybe you were hurt.
Right. No, I'm sorry. I'm not good on this whole phone thing. I'm more of an in-person kind of person, you know?
Oh, well, in that case, we could do the in-person
You know thing
what?
I'm so rude. I actually haven't even called while you called. Why did you call?
I shouldn't have called. I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. Goodbye, Oliver.
Wait. And you must be Elliot.
Oh, you must be Brian.
Right. So, what brought you into the fabulous world of online dating?
Wowza! Isn't that just the question every girl wants to be asked? What's wrong with you? Why aren't you good enough for the real world?
I didn't mean like that.
I'm sorry, I know, I don't know. It's not like the old days.
I'll be honest. I joined because I'm on the rebound. Oh!
So you're one of those guys that's always in a relationship.
Oh, come on, you say it like it's a bad thing. Life's more fun with someone else. And I know the dating rules say that you should wait 24 hours, but... I think we're potentially compatible. I'd love to do this again.
Yeah, sure, okay.
Great, pick you up Friday 30.
Sure.
Elliot, something I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
The future.
We've only known each other for a week, Brian.
True. But when you interview for a job, you know within a couple of weeks whether you might want to take.
Are you suggesting that...
Together, we could get through the highs and the lows of life. So what do you think? Oh, Ellie, it's been a while, hasn't it, huh? So, you getting married?
I'm getting married.
What about that boy Oliver that you really liked? He was cute.
What about him?
Well, he's in this girl's life cast. Anyway, it's gone viral. It's about you.
Even more reason not to watch it.
Elliot! If you don't watch this video, I'm never talking to you again.
The reality of the situation is that I'm in love with someone else. I met the most amazing girl ever on my first online date. She was perfect. Everything made sense when I was with her.
And then I went and screwed it all up, and now she's dating somebody else. And maybe that's the right thing for her, but I don't think it is. I'd move mountains for her to spend forever with me.
I'm making a mistake. I have to go find him. I don't even like coffee.
I'm sorry. Things got so convoluted and confused.
It's not your fault. That's just...
Love?
During my 3 years at Speech and Debates, I've learned a lot of things and experienced a lot of things as well. I've experienced that hard work is what it takes to achieve success and to thrive in speech and debate. In speech and debate, we've all shared similar experiences, but we've all learned different lessons. And it's through those lessons, it's what we've become. In my years at Speech and Debate, I learned how to be ambitious.
I learned perspective.
I learned to overcome shyness.
I learned to be proud.
I learned how to have a presence.
I learned dedication.
I learned to have a good character.
I learned responsibility.
I learned patience.
I learned perseverance.
I learned how to be myself.
I learned to express myself.
I learned how to manage my time.
I learned open-mindedness.
I learned the value of integrity.
Now, these seniors have just shared an insight with you on what they've learned over their past few years at speech and debate. For me, it was confidence. And that wouldn't be possible without you. So, we'd like to say thank you. Thank you to the administrators, parents, families, and friends who come out and support us. And in honor of our seniors, we'd like to perform one last Sick'em Cats to end their speech and debate career.